We hear a lot of perspectives on the Mankind podcast. Inclusion of a guest is not an endorsement of their views, and the opinions expressed here do not always represent the mission or values of the Mankind Project USA.
Welcome back to the Mankind Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Clift, and today is a fun one. We get to welcome back Frank the Legend Shamrock to the show. He joined us 3 years ago, right at the beginning of the show, and it was just so nice to catch up. Since then, and since I last spoke to him, I too have become a girl dad. And we talk about how becoming a girl dad is one of the most rewarding and yet challenging roles that a man can undergo. And so we learn about his lessons now that his daughter's becoming a woman and going out in the world. But we also go deep into his plus, equal, and minus system and how, when applied, it can open just about any door, gain access to any mentor that can help you level up in whatever area. I mean, I've applied it to my professional life and fatherhood. I've got a wonderful array of dad mentors now. So you're going to love this episode with Frank. You really get to feel his heart from a man who wants to be a terrifying world beater. So enjoy this episode of the show. This is the Mankind Podcast. Good. So, g'day, and welcome to another live recording of the Mankind Podcast, the show where we break the molds of modern manhood to prove there's more than one way to be a man. And returning today is Frank Shamrock, a multiple-time world champion mixed martial artist with a 16-year career which saw him claim titles in the UFC, Strikeforce, Pancrase, and WEC. All of this after overcoming insurmountable odds and a tumultuous childhood of abuse and incarceration. Now, after graciously passing the baton to the next generation of fighters, Frank transitioned into promoting and helped build the fight organization Strikeforce, which was then acquired for $34 million by the UFC. This then freed up Frank to transition into his proudest role as a super dad to his daughter, Nicolette. And he returns to the Mankind Podcast after 3 long years. Frank, welcome back to the show, mate.
Man, it's so good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it was so neat having, since you were last on, I've had so many people reach out and just go, man, I feel like my heart, the armor that surrounded my heart was able to soften from that conversation, because you have this guy who is, known in so many spaces, in so many worlds, but many know you as the fighter, big, scary, jacked world beater. And then you just opened up so beautifully and so vulnerably. It gave so many so-called tough guys the permission to go, you know what, like maybe there's greater range to me as a man than just being tough. So thank you for that.
Yeah, been my pleasure. Yeah.
So now let's kick things off. First things first. So last we spoke, your daughter was 13. And we already teased, what it would be like. I said $20 to the person that makes it up the driveway to knock on the door and say, "Hi, Mr. Shamrock, I'm here to take Nicolette out on a date." So what's been happening in fatherhood? What's new? What's exciting? And what are you witnessing in your little girl?
Well, she's 5'8", 115 pounds with six-pack abs and generous assets over her entire body. So she's become a woman in a teenager's body, which has just kind of blown her mind to the next level. But yeah, just the knowledge. I mean, she's really becoming her own, woman. And the conversations we're having are just so impactful. And, like we were talking earlier, all those really important dad lessons that I was like, I got to say this because it's super important. It's part of the fabric now. And to see her becoming a woman and to have that confidence and to be beautiful and feel beautiful and be able to present herself. We call it being responsible. Are you able to respond? She's like, yep, I'll respond. And so it's just been absolutely fantastic. Honestly, it's every time I see her, it just blows my heart out, because I can't, I see my little girl in this woman's body and I'm like, I don't understand. Just keep moving forward. But about the boyfriends, I have met one. One. I've shook the hand and looked them in the eye.
Yeah.
And no others. They don't come around. And I mean, they're all invited, and I'm a nice guy. But yeah, I think there's some barriers there. I think when they see my big Jeep coming, they all run. They're like, "Oh no,
Yeah.
it's Mr. Shamrock," because she's always standing there alone, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think we spoke last time. You said, you know what? I think what I'm going to do is lead them through the gym and just have
Right,
all my
the dojo.
trophies lined up and the swords and the belts and, you know, and just be like, yeah, come on through now, and just being a gi when they walk in.
Yeah. I mean, I had it planned, and I think my daughter has kiboshed it for me. She's like, "No, we're not doing that.
We're not doing that.
We're
not doing that.
do it. I'm ready for you to meet them." But they're all lovely. You know, here's the best part is, you know, because of how I present as a man, because of how I lead and teach, and I'm responsible. Those are the guys she's finding. You know, those are the guys that are like, "Hey, this guy's got his stuff together, and he's an athlete, and this guy's smart, and I like those characteristics. I like those traits. You know, they feel good." So, you know, I was a bad kid, honestly. She's not going for the bad kids. You know, she's in this world where she's like, "I like that guy, and I like him, and yeah, football's great. Let's go watch that." And like, you know, there's no barriers to her exploration right now because of her confidence and her, you know, the way she's raised, I guess.
And it's, I recall also you sharing that, you know, you've been pretty candid with her. You know, she knows your story, right? And so you're giving her perspectives from different stages of life, and I'm sure that allows her to empathize with boys or even young men whose prefrontal cortexes aren't even, you know, fully formed or developed. So I'm sure it gives her that edge to be able to, you know, represent herself and know herself and her values, but also empathize with what she's seeing among her peers.
Yeah, I think I mean, I came from the old generation where you don't talk about what you do, and you know, you say one thing, you do another, and that didn't seem to work out that well, and I don't see it working out that well. But sharing these honest experiences and, you know, making them age appropriate, you know, obviously, but
of course, you
know, sharing the lesson behind it, I think is super valuable. And my daughter knows all about my childhood, me going to prison, like all the stuff that I did, and you know, it's not like I, you know, laid it on her. Excuse me, it just came up, you know, like I'm doing my job. Oh, I'm talking about this. Dad, did you do this? Oh, of course I did. You know, here's what I learned, and this was the result, and you know, here's my advice. So yeah, I think being truthful, I think the thing, because if they don't get the truth, then how can they make value decisions? Like if they don't get your truth and the experience, how can they learn from you? And what I saw, I mean, that's what parents did. They said one thing and did another. And that was super confusing. Like, I didn't understand that. So yeah, we switched it this time around, and I think the result has been, you know, really, really strong.
Yeah. Beautiful, mate. Beautiful. Well, it's clearly she's, you know, a reflection of a multitude of her influences, and I can imagine the pressure of raising a daughter. I'm feeling it now, right? Because we shared before we went live. You know, I've got my baby girl now, and so listening back to our episode, I'm like, so many lessons that I intellectually understood back then, I now feel like I'm like integrating that. It feels so much more real for me. But I'm also very fortunate to be in a committed relationship and raising our daughter. And we have a lot of men come to the Mankind Project that are doing it alone, or they're having to do it in a shared custody situation. Oftentimes those situations aren't the healthiest between the birth mum and themselves. What have been some of the challenges as a single dad in raising a daughter? And what have you learned about yourself in the process?
Well, the biggest challenge for me was just not being there all the time, right? Like not being connected. And it's not that my wife and I were acrimonious. It's just that once we separated, you lose your connection with your child, and it's still there at its base, but it grows at a different, you know, rate because someone's there, someone's not. You know, someone's having the experiences, someone's not. You know, and so. That was truthfully one of the hardest things for me to accept and realize. And but at the end of the day, I realize it's part of growing up. Like, she's going to leave at some point and go on with her life and be like, all right, love you, Dad. And that's something that's going to happen as part of this process anyways. It happened, a little early for me. And I didn't know, I mean, truthfully, I had a boy first. And boys are easy. You just beat them and don't let them get hurt. It's super simple. Show them love. But girls are way more complicated. They're very emotional. They have different types of communication, levels of communication, interaction, and different levels of trust. And it was hard to navigate that in the beginning. Once I figured it out, it felt wonderful. Then I got divorced, and now the pieces get reset and you try to start over. But yeah, the hardest thing for me is just doing all the domestic stuff. Just getting places and doing this,
sure,
doing that, and trying to do all the stuff that I know that she needs done for her, life to continue forward and stuff. But I'm like a, old fighter guy. I'm not, super scheduler. I don't get places early, So,
sure,
just trying to change some of my stuff to be more supportive of her is what I'm realizing, So then I get there 10 minutes early and I just sit there, because before I'd show up late because I'm an idiot, and she'd be like, Dad, that's not cool, and I could feel her words. Man, it isn't cool, man. And so I had to make some changes in that area. And then, it's just, I realize as a parent, you need that intimate time. You got to hang out. You got to have those conversations. You got to have those experiences. You got to have those tears, with your child, because those are the valued moments that take forward. That really they go back and they go, I remember when it was hard, and I remember when we did this to fix that, or we did this to change or adjust, and that makes them very strong people in life. And that's what I'm seeing now. Like 3 years ago, this was super hard. Now she's like, hey, Dad, I'll call you. Like, let's have dinner. Here's my stuff. It's more of an adult conversation, if you will, from this young woman, and that I think it's helping me grow up. To be honest with you.
Yeah, right. I mean, oftentimes it's just we can witness our unfinished business in our children, right? They're a mirror; they reflect that. Back to us.
They only know what we teach them. They only do what we, guide them to do. In truth, I mean, that's where do you get the information? You take it from your parents, take it from your mentors, take it from your, the people guiding you, leading you in your community. So, yeah, I mean, she has been the, biggest thing in my life, in the second half of my life, and then, and the most educating, just because I see this human. She doesn't have all the trauma that I did. She's had all these great lessons and mentors and support and care and advice. And, even though she's going through social life like we all, do, she's still excelling and she's still growing. And, there's no blocks to that progress. And that's my job. I mean, that's what dads are supposed to do, is make sure your kids are growing strong, healthy, and they're good kids when they're adults. And so I feel like I'm on the right path. And then at the end of the day, we're healthy. I mean, we're strong. We have a great community. We have people who love us. And even though we're not together every single day, all that's still intertwined. All that still exists. That exists. And unfortunately, like when I was a kid, it didn't exist. Everything was terrifying. Living on the streets, like, going here, there, like so much uncertainty and fear guided my life for so long that I didn't even know how to live, and it took a long time just to get it all in line. And then, of course, I messed it up and got divorced, but just getting life in line, getting all the knowledge and information together through mentors, through parents, through people that helped me. That's the blessing, man. I mean, I'm still, I thought I'd be dead a long time ago. I mean, let's be real.
Yeah. This is like second, third wind, right?
This is amazing. It's fantastic. Yeah. And then, by the way, if you believe you're going to perish doing your preferred profession, and you believe your life is very short, and that's your universe, you grow into that, right? And then at some point you either accept it and that becomes your universe, or you break through it. And luckily for me, I broke through it. I was like, wait a minute, I'm not going to die. I'm still going. And then, well, how do I keep going? How do I get better? How do I get stronger? How do I get healthier? How do I get my family better? Like, so that whole process, it's like I don't know, maybe a 10-year process of me going, damn it, I'm not going to die. All right, well, we better get better.
Can't kill me. Can't kill me. Yeah.
I was like, I tried everybody. Nobody can kill me. So I'm just going to try to get better, figured out. And that's been interesting.
We're thrilled to have BetterHelp as a sponsor for the Mankind podcast. BetterHelp matches you with a licensed therapist for live one-on-one sessions, someone trained to listen, support, and offer helpful insights. If getting one-on-one support feels like a good direction for you, I invite you to check it out. Go to betterhelp.com/mankind and get 10% off your first month of therapy.
So I want to shout out, firstly, for those that want to hear a deeper telling of your story, episode 22 of the Mankind podcast, kicking it back to our first couple weeks in the game. You were gracious enough to be a part of that kind of inaugural crew that came through. And it's just a wonderful 90 minutes of just hearing your story, the real hero's journey, and how it really transpired. So for those listening to this episode, I'm going to put in the show notes the link to that episode. So give it a listen, bring the tissues. It's a deeply moving retelling of your story, which really is a super abridged version of quite a detailed, thorough existence. I mean, it's just been amazing to see what you've achieved in your life. So I want to transition now. You mentioned talking about the mentors that are coming to your life that are giving you guidance, and I was reading Ryan Holiday's Ego is the Enemy, and was just so pleasantly pleased to hear him quote you and your plus minus equal system as a means to achieve excellent things, but also remain humble in the pursuit of excellence. And so I got a little bit of I know him. That's pretty cool. I like Ryan. I like Frank. This is great. I feel special. But then I was able to shift that aside and go, man, I would love to have you come back on and share the many ways that implementing this system has helped you in all these different areas of life. So if you can explain the plus minus equal system to the listeners, and then we'll dive into different areas of how you've applied it and then how they can apply it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I don't think it took me maybe 15 years to theorize and think of this system. But it works like this: plus, equal, minus. You find your plus, you find someone who's accomplished or is doing or is the person or has the thing you want, and you present yourself. You find a way to get in that circle and make that plus your mentor. Make there your plus in the place that you want to be. And that's a huge humble pie, moment where you go to someone and you say, I would like your information. I would like to be like you. And you tell me what to do. I'll do whatever. And that, that's sort of the first step. And then equally as important is you're equal. And that's the person you, just like you, doing the exact same thing in whatever industry or life, whatever place you're trying to get to, there's somebody else trying to get there too. And if you can identify that person, your journey will be a whole lot better. And you'll have someone to do, and you'll have someone to barometer against, and you'll have a companion on your journey. And then the final one is your minus. And the minus is somebody who was you before, someone who's looking for that information, someone who goes, you guys are in that industry. I want to be in that industry. How do I get in there? And this very simple set of 3 symbols allows you to take anything that's confusing, hard, challenging, complicated, fearful in your life and gives you a system to achieve it. And so for me, I was doing cage fighting, and I needed to figure out how not to get killed and to become a champion so that I could live my dreams. But when I went out to find information, people didn't have it because no one had experienced it. And so I was looking for my pluses. When I found those pluses, they didn't have all the information. They had pieces of the information. So I went to each one. I said, hey man, this is what I need. This is what I need. Hey, come over here. Like, let me help you study. Like, let's figure this out. And what that gave to me was 5 or 6 different people who had the very specific information that I needed so that I could complete my journey of not getting beaten to death and, be a champion. And then I took that back to my equals and I said, guys, oh my God, I got this great information. Like, let's all work with this. Let's all think about it. Let's talk about it. Let's train. Let's practice. Let's do this. Like, let's figure out, why this works, what's going on. Like, let's work together, together, right? These are my peeps. And then I took the same information and I started teaching my martial arts classes. And with that, I was just truthful. Hey guys, just learned this from Bob. Jim and I just trained 1,000 times in it. I want to teach you because it's super important. This is what we're trying to figure out. And, that's the simplest one because it's martial arts and that's really my base. But, I also do it for my relationships. If I want to be in a really valued relationship with somebody, I'm going to find somebody in a really valued relationship, 20, 30, 40, whatever years, even if it's 10 years and they're just really cool. I want to find out why and how. And hey, man, give me some tips, bro. Like, how did this, mature to this point? Because that's what I want. I want that in my partnership. I want that in my marriage. I want that in my life. I get some advice. I go, okay, that sounds great, man. Okay. And then I go back to my peeps. I got my neighbor, Bob. Hey, Bob, I know you're not happy in your marriage, but I just learned this over here. Like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Like, we should talk about this. And, let's, hey, I'm having trouble too. Like, let's work on this together. And then, now I got a companion, and then I can go to my son who's newly married and I can say, hey son, man, I just learned a couple of things here and this is my experience. So I just want to give you some advice and take it. Yeah. I don't care, but this, I think it's important. And then my son goes, oh, that is important. And he, tells his colleague at work who's also having a young baby, right? And then the colleague goes, oh, that's important. So it just creates this circle of knowledge and care and reciprocity. Like it allows people to give and do it well, right? Because at a certain point, I'm 50 years old. Odds are I'm going to die in 20 years, 25 years. Although I'm going to live to be 100.
Standard American lifespan. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. On average, I got a decade or two. But the real value of the moment is like, I've had all these experiences. My son doesn't have to go through what I did. He doesn't have to be a cage fighter. Like we fixed that problem. Because he went, yeah, that doesn't make sense, Dad. And I went, yeah, it's not a good profession, son. You should do something else. Yeah. But I'm sure when he was a kid, that was one of his dreams because that's what Dad was doing. Because that's what I would have done. That's what we're humans. Yeah. I sat him down and said, son, this is dangerous, and it's not good. Take another path. Like, this is my advice to you. And he went, yeah, Dad, it's terrifying. I go, think about it. But just having those mechanics in place, having somebody that you can go to, I actively search them out. If I want to do a film, I find the film guy who made a film about to film similar to me. Yeah. And I show up at his doorstep, or I show up at his dinner, or I buy into his charity event, or I go golf with him, or whatever. And then I present myself. Hey, I'm Frank Shamrock. This is my journey. This is what I'm interested in doing. You've done it. How can I get some? What do you need? Can a bag? Like, you need me to mow your lawn? Like, I'll do it. It's the information is so important to me. And then I'm honoring them. This is how I feel now that I'm 50. If someone came to me and said, Frank, this is important to me. Can you do something? Teach me. And I'd be like, tell me why it's important. Tell me what the journey is. Tell me what our progress is. And I would say, perfect. Let me help you.
So, okay, so you can look at this from multiple angles. And, the plus equal minus system, upon listening to it, I went, man, I have so many great dads in my life who I admire and look up to. And so I have my dad mentor, shout out to Eric Treese. He, combat vet, tough guy, south side of Chicago, 4 daughters.
Oh, that's how it works. That's how God works, baby.
And just like the biggest teddy bear, like just such a beautiful man. And I glean so much from him. And so, legacy, thank you for that. Question is, what do you believe are the qualities and characteristics that someone can endear themselves to a mentor? Because something I've taught in my coaching and practice is no one's entitled to a mentor. You're not entitled to advice or time. It's a giveaway. And you need to make yourself valuable to be mentored, whether that person wants to see that you're going to pay it forward, whether that person wants to see that you're actually going to apply what they say and not just waste their time. What do you find are those qualities that really endear someone to a mentor, and so that they can get that information and actually apply it?
Yeah. Honesty. Consistency, progress. I don't mentor anybody unless they're halfway there. Because
Sure.
unless you're halfway, I can't help you. Because there's so much work to be done. I can advise you and I can give you some examples. But the first thing I say is, great, show me your work. Like, let's see where we're at. That way I can tell if my time is valuable. Because if not, hey, bro, you get further along, come back and hit me up. For me, it's always been, I just show up honest and true. I tell my truth. I got my mentor, Henry, my lawyer, father figure, 25 years later. I showed up and said, no, this is where I'm going. This is what's going on. This is what I'm trying to do. I don't know how to do it. I heard you knew how. And I'm here. I'll do anything. He just looked at me and I was like, I love it. That's amazing. So just being truthful and honest about what the thing is, what the journey, what the mission is. It's funny. I do a lot of consulting for like people changing jobs. Like, it's the weirdest thing. I don't know why. I don't know how I got in this role, but people are like, oh my God, I got to change my job. I got to go over here. I don't know what to do. Like, can you help me out? And I go, yeah, well, sit down with the guy and say, hey, I don't know what's going on.
Be honest,
I'm really
be
interested
true.
in doing it. I'd like to get a mentor and some help. Can you help? And then it works every single time. And they're like, I never thought that would work. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's honesty, truthfulness. It's, be present and show progress. If you do that, I will help you.
So let me take a stab here and take a risk, and you can just shoot it down if it doesn't land. But I believe that people would come to you for your consulting, your advice, your experience on transitioning, because I mean that's a big part of your story. I mean, you held the world championship at the UFC and you put it down to go do other things, and then when you retired from fighting, I judge you did it quite graciously. You handed the baton to the next generation of fighter. So might I dare say you're quite an authority in the space when it comes to transitioning between different roles or industries. And so, yeah, that was my
That makes sense. I wonder why they keep calling me. It makes perfect sense. But I can say when I first created the program, and this goes to mentor, my mentor was a Hollywood shark lawyer. And so, when I'm working with my equals, we're all friends, community, working together. But my mentor taught me to be a shark. So when it came, dealing in business with my equals and to, having things other than martial arts and progress and stuff together, I brought some of that stuff down, which I realized was a mistake. You can't beat up your friend. Martial arts gym, you can't beat up your friends and be unkind to them and, be mean and aggressive because you're, learning different tactics over here. And so it took me a while to figure it out and separate. Before those equals were like this. I was like, oh, he's my equal? Watch me. I'm going to break him off. And then I realized, like, through development, I was like, oh, I'm losing, my equals don't want to hang out with me. It's not fun anymore. And so I had to change my tactics because I realized I was just learning things that weren't valuable down here. The business was great. All that worked. But some of the interpersonal stuff that I was learning, I had to take a step back and go, oh, that doesn't feel that good. And I changed it. And then it helped me when I taught and consulted, because I was like, guys, just by the way, you might run into this guy 5 years from now. He might be your, CFO guy. And you don't have to be mean to him. You don't have to be an enemy. You could just be direct and forward and communicate and, truth. Hey, guys, this is what needs to be done. I need your help, whatever that is. So that was a big lesson that I learned about halfway through, teaching and developing this theory.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Yeah, it doesn't help if all your peers are lying in a puddle of blood around you.
And they're all mad at you, and the wives are mad at you. It's like, oh no, I didn't work that one out.
Yeah.
But I was taking business stuff. The martial arts I always was good with, but I was taking these business ideas that were, aggressive in Hollywood and stuff, and I was trying to apply them to this other group, because I didn't see the difference. And then one day I went, oh no, that's the wrong application. I changed the whole dynamic. Became more, we're together. It's like we may be competing, but we're together competing. Instead
It's
of
amazing. It's amazing how this all ties kind of back in martial arts in a way, because you can brute force things, or you can use finesse. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes it's the finesse, right, that is the simplest path. I'm sure there's times and place to bring in the force. What's coming up for me as we're talking is this concept that I've heard many people say is there really a black belt in life or different areas of life? Because the second someone might believe that they've hit the pinnacle of whatever it is, that in itself can be a curse, because there's always something to learn. There's always somewhere to grow. There's always a weak spot that we can work on. And to me, it sounds like you're committed to the process of evolution and growth, whatever that may be.
Well, that's my goal. Yeah. And I gotta live to be 100. So if I want friends and you want people to hang out with, I gotta work that out inside myself.
Yeah. You got to go to your peers and smack the cookie out of their hands and go, come on, man, what are we doing here? I'm not carrying your casket. Let's go.
Well, I can say amongst my friend group, everybody's like, hey man, you're so healthy. Like, hey, and let me tell you what I'm doing. And so I have had a great influence amongst my equals, and then they've had on me because I see their life, I see what they're doing. I'm like, oh, I like that. I liked it. Before I would look at it, but I'm going to smash you. It's a different perspective now, and it feels so much better. The relationships are better. They're longer terms. I still have both love. I still have the equal. I still have the minuses. I still have my pluses. But yeah, the equal relationship has really, really changed.
Has really changed, yeah. What do you think makes a great mentor? And what is it that you admire or aspire to be for your minuses, for those that you want to help bring up?
I think a great mentor speaks truth, to your need. That's what I would say, right? Because I have a lot of people come to me. I mean, they're CEOs. They got all the stuff. They got everything. They don't need me. In truth, they're just here because they don't know what's going on. They don't feel good. They climbed the top of the mountain. They don't feel good. And so a lot of guys come to me, and I realize at the end of it, it's just they don't have these mechanics in place in their life. They don't have equals. They don't have pluses. They don't have minuses. They don't understand the value of connecting all these things and creating a circle of growth. They reach the top, and there's nobody else in the circle. There's nobody else in the chain. They're just there by themselves. And, when they leave, they realize, that guy's my equal. And man, I should call this guy. And I do want to sell my company. Who's the guy that's buying, and their brains just open up. But it's nothing I did. I just make them work out, make them go to the beach, make them think about stuff, punch the mitts, have a really good interpersonal experience. And then I talk about stuff like plus minus equal, the basics of these mechanics that we're talking about. It takes about 48 hours for the brain to unlock. Go, oh, yeah, I got this guy and that guy, and this guy was my, investor, mentor, and I go write it down. And they leave, and they're like, all right, I'm calling Jim, Joe, Jack, and I'm thing up, and it just changes the way your brain works for getting that circle of trust and growth in place. But it starts with humility. It all starts with humility. Like, hey, I don't know. I should know. I need to know. I want to know. Who has it? Sir. How you doing? Like, how can I be of service? Whatever that is, doesn't matter. Doesn't really matter.
What's the next conquest for Frank Shamrock? What's getting you excited? What gets you a little bit nervous?
Boxing in the park.
Boxing in the park. You of all people.
In the park. Yeah. And I'll tell you why. Boxing is the most dangerous combat sports. Yes. And all of its athletes die before any other combat sport athlete. on average.
Yes.
He will die sooner. He'll die of brain damage, brain trauma, and your body being affected by that. And when I was taught boxing, I wanted to be a professional boxer. I trained for 10 years in boxing. Went to my coach, said, I'm ready. And I went to Showtime and I said, I'm ready. And then they took me to a fight. The CEO was very wise. He goes, have you ever, how long have you been doing it? And da-da-da. Excuse me. And I said, 10 years, but I'm this, I'm that, and all these things. He goes, come watch boxing with me. Sit next to me. Let's talk about this. Let's watch it. Let's make a real decision. I watched 3 rounds of fighting. I turned to him and go, no way I'm doing this. Because the amount of power, the amount of damage that's being done to the human brain is extraordinary. And most people don't know this, but you should never, ever, ever bump your brain or get hit in the head. Because if you do, you will damage it. And that's just a fact. And so I developed a bunch of theories, the Jello theory, all these different ideas, because none of my coaches taught me this. All my coaches told me, well, just don't get hit hard and you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's fine if you're Floyd Mayweather.
Right. If you got, 20 years under your belt and no one ever hits you. But it didn't make sense to me. So then I had to figure out what really happens to the brain when it gets punched. And then I had to figure out, well, how do I avoid that? And then I had to figure out, well, how do I teach that? And so at the end of the journey, 1, I decided not to be a pro boxer. And then 2, I really started doubling down on teaching this idea of the Jello theory of the value of the brain, your brain being a supercomputer. I talk about it like your brain's an iPhone. You wouldn't drop your iPhone, would you? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And yet we have all these contact sports that, attack the brain, impact the brain, when you should never, ever, ever attack or bump your brain. So all of my coaching and high-level CEO sessions end up boxing in the park. We always end up boxing in the park. And I'm putting the final lesson down. And I'm like, you're getting ready to go home. Take boxing with you. Take the plus minus equal. Take these tools. Go back to, go apply them. And after my very last session with another CEO, I realized I'm standing in the park. The sun's setting. It's beautiful. This guy's beaming with energy because he just unlocked himself. He's telling me all the names of all these people he's going to build his circle with. And I go, this is what I should be doing, teaching this in the park, in the setting where people can really absorb information, have a wonderful time. And then I was like, but I can't really teach boxing because boxing is not that good for you. So how can I create a system where anyone can come together, train in real boxing techniques, but not get punched in the head, have a great physical, mental, and spiritual workout while building community, right? And then I was like, ooh, that would be amazing if it weren't boxing, the most singular one-on-one activity that exists. It's literally one coach, one person. It's literally a one-on-one, incremental adjustment. And I'm like, I can figure this out. And so for the past 2.5 months, that's what we've been doing. Every Wednesday, I got a group of guys. We all get together. We're figuring it out. And we have so far amazing program, great vascular, great muscular. We've created a ton of games, but it literally keeps me up at night because I don't want anyone to get punched in the head. I want people to be educated as to the value of it. I want people to understand how to defend themselves. Easiest way to turn off someone's brain, punch them in the head. Like, hello. So it's dangerous. It's valuable. It's important. It's misunderstood. And if we can cross some of these barriers, I teach the Jello theory at high schools. And the football coaches come up and they're like, well, where's your degree? I'm like, I don't have a degree, bro. I had 44 professional fights. I consulted a neuroscientist, and this is my theory.
Take my word for it.
They just go, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, hey, you know what? If you want to bang these kids' heads around, I don't, I just teach. I have knowledge. This is what happened to me. This is what the science says. I want to share it with you.
Oh, man, I tell you, I'm so thankful that it's coming from you, this message. We had a real problem in Australia when I was coming of drinking age, which was guys getting king hit. King hit meaning they don't know it's coming.
Oh,
So someone knocks your beer over, they turn around and you just in the back
sucker
of the
punch.
head.
Yeah.
We had people sucker punch. We had people dying.
Yeah.
Quite frequently, or they'd be in a fight. Someone just gets a good hit on the jaw, and then they hit their head on the curb.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Danny Green, one of our top boxers, did a big campaign just around "It's Not Worth It," and then you see like movies like Concussion that talks about how how these players are turning 50, 60 and they're living in their cars now. Like they can't put it together because their brain is just disintegrating. And it makes me worried if I have a son. I mean, my daughter might want to get into contact sports. I mean, I'm not going to rule that out, but it terrifies me so much because just I was a professional gymnast and I had 2 concussions in gymnastics from hitting the bar. One resulted in vertigo that took about 3 months to go away. But in one season of rugby, just a 3-month period when I was in 10th grade, I had 2 concussions.
Oh.
And so I have mates that I remember being quite articulate, that they're only in their early 30s and they're a little bit slack-jawed. And I remember the guy he had a boxing gym next to the gym I owned, and legendary boxer, worked with Nathan Corbett, like all these top guys, and he had that kind of loose jaw, and you hear stories
Mush
of
mouth.
like mush mouth. I mean, and then you hear terrible stories of Shane Carwin, former challenged for the world heavyweight title, and he's an engineer. He's a remarkably intellectual human being, and he can't keep it together with a job, and because he's just been hit in the head so many times. So I think it's great that you're spreading the word about this, and saying to many people like who want to glorify your journey, right? You're saying to them, don't do it.
Don't do it.
If anything, I did it so you don't have to.
Don't do it. Go to school, get an education, skip prison, make sure you have options in your life. Yeah. It's, if you have time, let me tell you the Jello theory.
Please.
Okay. Super important. So your brain is like Jello in a bowl. Your skull is the bowl. If you shake Jello in a bowl, it'll break apart. That's your brain in your skull when it's impacted. That's the Jello theory. You should never shake the Jello, ever. Bad idea. And then I taught that for about 20 years. And then I ran into a neuroscientist at a convention one time. And I said, oh, my God, I got to talk to you about it. But teaching this theory, I got no education or anything, but this is my experience, this is my belief. And so I told him the theory, and he goes, you're absolutely correct, only it's worse. Inside of your skull are ocular bones, different items like that, and they poke holes in the Jello as the Jello's shaking. And he goes, add that to your theory and keep going. I was like, thanks. Wow. Thanks, Doc. It's even more terrifying.
Yeah, right. So have you experienced any challenges from your history of getting hits in the head?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Have you yourself? Yeah. There you go.
Sorry,
you got me.
I haven't. I haven't at all. But I was very lucky because I when I got out of prison, I was basically a college nerd. I mean, I was just studying everything, reading everything, and then when I started getting into competing, I was a young boy. I carried bags. I mean, I was a lackey. But it gave me a chance to see everybody else interact and to view this from like over here. And so I saw the last generation of guys come together, the old guys, and I saw mush mouth and the missed words and the inability to articulate things and getting stuck on things. And I saw this and I went, this doesn't make sense. Like, what happened to them? Like, why did they get this way? And then when I came down to it, I realized nobody was teaching about brain impact. Nobody was addressing, was communicating it. Nobody was teaching you anything about it. Literally, my coach told me, don't get hit hard. I'm like, well, how do I do that? Like, what? Yeah. So, just having the knowledge for everybody. Like, to me, it's for everybody because, hey, I might decide to go out and play soccer. But by the way, every time you bounce that ball off your head, your brain shakes, shaking a Jello. So you make a decision. Is that what you want to do? But if you have the data and you know what it's going to do, make a decision. And at this point, like, I would never put my son in football. Like, it makes no sense whatsoever, because he's going to impact his brain. He's going to get brain damage. Every single football player I meet who's professional, they're goofy, they're mush. Their brains are smashed. And so, but you should know that's the risk you want to take. If that's what's going on, let's get the science out, let's get the data out, and then make valued decisions with it. That's really what the mission of Boxing in the Park is. I just want people to understand, like, oh, martial arts, oh, danger and safety combined. Oh, wait, knowledge too? This is amazing. Now when I go out, I don't feel scared or nervous or whatever. I understand the situation. I understand the risk, and I understand what to do about it in the safest way possible. That's what I want to get out through Boxing in the Park. And I picked boxing because it is literally the hardest, most dangerous, jacked up, and romantic thing you can do. The boxing is a beautiful love of movement and stuff, but it's incredibly dangerous, as is any strike.
Frank Shamrock, absolute pleasure and honor to have you with us again. And certainly I hope it's not the last time, because I gleaned so much from your wisdom and your experience, and I know our listeners will as well. So where can we find out more about you, what you're up to, and if people want to get a hold of you, how can they do so?
I am at Frank Shamrock everywhere, on every social platform. I mostly hang out on Instagram these days. So if you want to reach out, it's best to reach out to me there. And then also frankshamrock.com. There's an official, reach out thing. If you are interested in coaching or speaking or educating, I'm definitely into that. And then we've had now 3 people pick up Boxing in the Park. So we've got 2 colleges doing it and 1 park here in South Arizona. So if you're interested in Boxing in the Park, I'm going to put all this data and knowledge in YouTube videos, so you can just pop it up, watch it, and then go teach Boxing in the Park. All you need is 2 pair of gloves, 2 people, and the desire to have a good time and, better yourself.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, mate, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. And of course, greatest thanks goes to our listeners who join us each and every week for this, the Mankind Podcast, the show where we break the molds of modern manhood to prove there's more than one way to be a man. What do you say, Frank? Have we done that today?
You sure have, brother. And keep doing what you're doing, brother. I love your vibe. And, I meet a lot of men, and a lot of men try to squeeze my hand really hard. And it makes no sense to me. But when I see a man holding his daughter's hand and, helping her cross the street and speaking to her kindly and, caring for his family and caring for his equals, that's a man. That's what a real man is. And this fake tough guy, alpha BS, blah, 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 it's all fake. At the end of the day, all those men cry and ask for their mom when I'm beating them to death. They all say the same thing. I'm not ready. Oh, mom, please. So, because we're all the same, but let's be kind. And I think I told you last time, Brandon, but I'm going to tell you again, because it was the most powerful dad thing that ever happened to me. My cousin told me this. She said, when a dad talks to a girl, she'll always remember how he felt and what he said. So make those words kind. Make those words kind. And I was like, oh, man. All right. Lesson learned. And powerful, man. I'm so happy for you, brother. You are about to embark on the greatest journey of your life with that little girl. And change everything about you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, here they are. My 2 girls right here. And it's just, I tell you, I've got that daily opportunity to rise and step up and be the best man I can be for me, for my wife and my daughter. And having them has been the perfect accountability in order to do that. And conversations like this, of course. So thank you, Frank. Love to you, love to yours, and love to our listeners as well. We'll see you next week.
Hell yeah.
This has been another episode of the Mankind Podcast, produced in association with the Mankind Project USA. We have been your hosts, Boyson Hodgson and myself, Brandon Clift, and we want to thank our guests for joining us today and imparting their wisdom from their experiences in this amazing journey called life. If you want to find out more about today's guests and support them in their mission, you can find links to them in the show notes. Now, if you have found gold and insights that you believe could benefit your loved ones and those you care about, be sure to share it with them. And of course, we are always grateful for a rating and review of the show on iTunes. Now, above all else, we've got to thank you, the listener, because through your attention and your support, you have made it possible for us to let men all over the world know that they are not alone and that there is more than one way to be a man. And if something in this episode has touched you, then perhaps it is the call to action to get involved in men's work. With live trainings happening constantly and in-person trainings happening all over the world, the Mankind Project definitely has something for you. Now, if you've enjoyed the music in this episode and all of our episodes, be sure to check out Jim Donovan and the Sun King Warriors. I have links to them in the show notes. And lastly, just know, what it means to me to be a man is completely different than what it means for you. That is the beauty of this journey. So if you are looking for guidance, support, and community as you begin to unpack and dive deeper into your men's work journey, then you know where to find us. Same place, same time, next week. Lots of love. We'll see you then.
Hey, it's Boysen here with the Mankind Podcast. We are closing in on 100 5-star reviews of this podcast, and we have a goal. Brandon and I want to get to 250 5-star reviews. So help us out, will you? Please go to the Mankind Podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave us a review. Thank you. Hey, it's Boysen. On the Mankind Podcast, we've brought some incredible guests on to talk about the importance of doing the work to improve our mental and emotional health. And here's the truth. Multiple times over the last 25 years, I've had the help of one-on-one work with some amazing therapists. For me, for my wife, for both of us as adoptive parents, and for our kids. The Mankind Project and Men's Group, though awesome, are not a substitute for professional mental health support. And so I'm thrilled that the Mankind Podcast now has BetterHelp as a sponsor for the show. BetterHelp works online. It asks you what you're working on and then matches you for live one-on-one sessions with a licensed therapist, someone trained to work with you, listen, and offer helpful insights. I'm using BetterHelp. It's super easy, and I like what I'm getting. If getting one-on-one support in the comfort of your own space feels like a good direction for you, I invite you to check it out. Go to the link in the show notes or betterhelp.com/mankind. And if you sign up, you'll get 10% off your first month of therapy.